Okay, today on the bench we have a Uniden Bearcat 980 SSB. A customer sent this in to have a Channel King expansion board put in this, so that's the entire front display board. So, you know, new microprocessor, the whole 9 yards. The only thing that gets reused is the original LCD display here. This is an older version radio, and if you're not sure how to tell if you have a new or old version radio, you do not need to remove the covers on these. As long as you can see the back of the radio, you can tell if it's old or new. The old version, like this one, see that screw right there? So when the radio's actually right side up, turn the radio around, down and to the left of the antenna connector is a Phillips screw. In the new version radios, there's a hole there, but there's no screw. The reason there is no screw is, in this old version radio, and you'll see when I pop the covers off, there's a little circuit board stands up back here. That's the SWR bridge. This screw holds that so it can't move around. The new version radios do not have that. They incorporated the SWR bridge directly into the main circuit board. So let's get the covers off here and see what it looks like in here. Now, one thing the customer complained about with this radio was output power. Apparently, it does like 2 watts. These are not power monsters, but yeah, 2 watts is definitely, I don't know how it, I'll never understand that. How manufacturers can send a radio out the door that's, you know, its legal limit is 4 watts AM carrier, 12 watts peak on sideband. How they can let them go out the door at half their advertised power. I just, yeah, that's embarrassing. If I made radios, I'd be embarrassed by that. To let a radio go out the door that's doing half what it should be doing. So, he also, I think, did he want, look at the paper here, yes, he also wants the clarifier unlocked in this. Yes, they are proud of their screws on these things. Definitely have lots and lots of screws. And 2 more. Jesus. Grow gray hair waiting to take all the screws out of one of these things, couldn't you? Okay, 1 more. Almost there. So I'm assuming what we're going to find inside is a completely stock, unmodified radio, which is a good thing. It's always nice when I can get a radio before it's ever been touched by anybody. Oh, just at a quick glance at arm's reach, yeah, I can't say I see anything hokey. Doesn't even look like anything's ever been resoldered. So yeah, looking very stock. And we'll do some initial testing here and see what this, just exactly how this thing works. Yeah, it looks all stock. Wax still in the core for the adjustment there. And here's the SWR bridge I was talking about. So you can see this little metal bracket. That's what that screw goes to. This board does not exist in the current version of the radio. So the radio that they're making and selling now, or the second version, that actually you can't even see it. There's a couple traces, copper traces that come up and loop around. That's your SWR bridge. What they did was they actually incorporated that down on the main circuit board, so that's why they don't need this. But like I say, that's the easy way to tell if you have an old version. This one has a screw. New version doesn't have this board, doesn't have the screw. So yeah, this looks very stock. And let's bring it over here and take a look. And yes, this has the annoying beep. So it's actually good that the beep was not disabled in this. This does not have a, these radios have an annoying beep. Now the new ones, been a while since I had one of the new ones on the bench. I think those radios you can turn the beep on and off from the factory. But these original ones had that insanely loud beep. Every time you turn the channel selector or push a button, it beep, beep, beep. It just, just way too loud. Most people would do what they call the beep delete modification to just eliminate that beep. Now, when I put the replacement circuit board in here, the beep has to work. So I need to, luckily, stock radio. I don't have to re-enable that. And yeah, clarifier's still locked. You can see there's the wires. Everything's still intact down there. So, so let's get this thing hooked up and see just how horrible the output power is on this critter. Okay. Okay, turn the squelch down. Customer did send a factory microphone along with it. He sent his power cord. I don't need power cords. Okay. And let's get hooked up to a watt meter. And actually, I'll just go ahead and turn on the spectrum analyzer and oscilloscope. Set the radio to channel 20. Okay, we'll get the clarifier centered. And I have the speaker disconnected there. It should be that one. Okay, get my test set up over here. Let's see, frequency 27.205, span 10K. Okay, actually, I guess so you can see what the heck I'm doing here. Getting the spectrum analyzer and the oscilloscope set up so we can view the transmitted signal. Okay, and we'll grab the microphone here. And it's doing, I don't know what kind of watt meter he's using, but it's doing about 3.5 watts. So, and I don't have the spectrum analyzer attached. Get that hooked up. There we go. Let's just do a steady tone here. Yeah, modulation's about 95%. A lot better than I've seen in some radios. I've seen some radios at 75 to 80% out of the box. So, yeah. Now 3.5 watts, I'm going to say that's that's about average. What you will see for a radio stock from the factory, with a maximum, FCC limit of 4 watt AM carrier, 12 watts on sideband. That's usually what you're going to see, is about 3.5 watts. Manufacturers never, and people ask me that, why do they, says on the box 4 watts, why doesn't my radio put out 4 watts? Well, they do that because they don't want to get fined. If manufacturers make radios that put out over 4 watts, the FCC goes and pulls one off the shelf. They go and buy one, take it back to their lab and test it, and it's putting out more than 4 watts. Uniden or whoever makes the radio, if it's a Cobra or President, doesn't matter who it is. But if it's putting out more than it's supposed to and it's legally authorized and it's an FCC certified radio, they could be fined. So they always err on the side of caution and reduce it. That's why modulation's never 100%, AM carrier's never at 100%, or at its maximum. Sideband power's never at its maximum. They all err on the side of caution and reduce the power a little bit so they don't get busted, basically. Manufacturers want to stay in the manufacturing business. They don't want to be in the paying the fine bills business. So, yeah, I'm going to say transmit power actually is really close to what it's supposed to be. So, yeah, it's 3.5 watts is about the average you'll see for any radio out of the box. So let's see what the receiver sounds like on this thing. We'll get the communication test set up now. So, okay, what do we got? Minus 110, 27.205, AM 1 kilohertz. So, turn the volume up. You can hear there's minus 110 dBm. There's minus 120. And let's see, the A&L and noise blanker are both on, so I'll turn them off. And that sounds about normal for one of these. I don't know how it is in the camera. microphone, but I can still hear it minus 130. So it's not amazing, but honestly, for a stock radio, again, kind of what you would expect. So that's great, though. That's exactly what I want to see. Untouched radio in pretty much factory working condition. It's currently putting out what you would normally see from the factory. Same thing with receive sensitivity. It's about stock. I didn't check sideband, but I'm going to assume sideband is going to be about the same as AM as well. It's going to be, pretty much as long as it meets spec. That's all they care about. So let me get busy. Let me get the faceplate ripped out of this thing, remove the circuit board, get the new one stuffed in here, and unlock the clarifier, do a transceiver alignment on this, and we'll see how this critter works, and get the power turned up to 4 watts for the guy, because that's one thing he specifically asked for, was to make sure that this thing did put out the 4 watts that it's supposed to. So I'll be back. Okay, just in case you want to see what some of the actual differences are and some of the work that actually goes into installing one of these. Like I say, you have to have, this is the original one that I just pulled out of the radio. The display module gets reused, as does the microphone connector. So this display module, this is the board that's going to be going into it. This is the Channel King board. This display module and microphone connector came off of another radio. And along with other people that do these, what we'll do is we buy up broken 980 SSBs, usually ones that have like fried final sections. That usually seems to be all the ones I see, is people are the overpowered the output and blew out the back end of them. But you reuse the display module, because that's something that's custom to this radio. So that gets reused, and the microphone connector. Otherwise, everything else gets replaced. Now, I'll pull these cables off because I do need to reuse these 2 cables. But as far as the parts go, and that's where the big difference is on the back side here. You can see different processor. It's actually a much more simplified design too. You can see all the dropping resistors that Uniden has on the original board in this thing. You can see, yeah, we don't have that on this one. They just made it a lot easier. Mark made this one much more simplified design, and does so much more. Like I say, full channel coverage. Now there are he actually has 2 different versions of this board now. He's no longer going to be making this board. This is an old Rev. He even put a little sticker on there, old Rev. He has a new Rev board. The new Rev board will work in an old radio, like this one, original version. And that new Rev board also works in the new version radios. This board only works in the old version radios. So I told him, I was like, I still do the old version radios, so go ahead and send. So I got some of these, and that way he can get rid of them, because there's nothing wrong with them. They still do the exact same thing. It was just when Uniden came out with the new version radios, these boards would not work with it, so he had to redesign it so it would work with both of them. But since this is an old radio, or old version, this board works just fine with it. So other things had to do to this. I always take the side plate off, so it's kind of handy. Now granted, I would prefer to have a full aluminum what I call horseshoe bracket, or omega bracket, or a C, depending, I guess, what direction you look at it. But I like it to be solid aluminum. The Uniden uses a aluminum rear plate and steel sides, but it's actually nice that it just screws together and you can take off this side, because one thing to get the full advantage of this board, to get the full frequency coverage possible, is you have to replace the varactor diode, which is right there, and it's a tiny little guy. You even have the logo actually right on the board. You can see the varactor diode logo right there, but that needs to be replaced. And yeah, you can see there's electrolytic capacitors right here, and of course that's right up against the sheet metal. So try and get this thing back in here. Trying to get down in there to get to that little diode with this side in place. So yeah, it's really convenient. This just pops off with a couple screws, the 2 circuit board, 2 in the rear, and it just basically falls off. So that makes replacing and installing the new, which is inside the tape and reel there, the new varactor diode, very easy. So let me get this put together. I need to clean out some dust, man. This radio, I'm going to say, was definitely used in a mobile environment. Had a few spider colonies in it. I don't know if there's any on the covers here, but yeah, there was a spider nest on the old one. I removed from here. You can even see some of the residue still right there. There was a spider colony right there. There was one on the side plate there. So yeah, there's been a couple guys inside of this radio stomping around in here. But so let me get the new board in, and I'll be back once it's all back together. Just barely a little bit of skip coming in today. A little bit early in the day. It usually comes in a little bit better. Here recently, we're starting to get some skip again. It doesn't really start to come in till later in the afternoon. Of course, the 2000's over. It's a really good one, too. And I'm sure if we switch to AM, I'm sure the bowl is probably booming in. Ain't gonna do it no good. A little bit coming in, even it's kind of weak at the moment. So, in any case, we've got the radio done now. Alignment's, but the channel board's been installed into it. Alignment was done. And I did unlock the clarifier. And I thought I'd just really quick go over some of the features of the board, because it's actually been a while since I did a video on one of these boards, and there have been a few changes to the Channel King board in this. So there's some added features now. Of course, it does have memory channels. So, you know, let's say you wanted to save channel 6 as a memory. You just kind of like the original system. You just press and hold the memory button until you'll eventually see memory shows up on the screen there. So you can see if we switch off of that channel and come back to it, you can see that's saved as a memory channel. And then, you know, long press, and it'll remove it from memory. And then that's also your scan button. So, you know, same functionality there. You can either scan all the channels or scan the memory channels. You have the that doesn't do anything. I don't think that does anything anymore. Yeah, that one doesn't do anything anymore. That one's not used. The ANL noise blanker is still the same. CBPA is still the same, with the exception of if you do put one of those little tiny amplifiers, which I don't do, but if you do install one of those little amplifier, I'm not sure who makes those, but there's little amplifier boards in these radios. I'll show you in the menu. You can actually set the PA function, because PA, you know, it actually kind of works out kind of good, because actually that's what's the RF section is known as, you know, the amplifier, the power amplifier. So yeah, PA could stand for public address or power amplifier. Well, in the menu you can select this, and there are positions on the back of the Channel King board where you can set it where the radio will turn the amplifier on and off. So you don't have to worry about having a switch to turn your amplifier on and off. You can do that with the CBPA switch if you set that up in the menu system. Your normal, you know, functions here, that all stays the same for the meters. AM upper lower sidebands the same. You know, talk back, RF gain. You know, you can set just like before. Set that. Mic gain, you know, again, that's stays adjustable. Weather channel. Now the weather channel is another thing that that is selectable. You can either use the weather channel as the weather channel, or you can use it as basically a broadband receiver. The frequency range that the weather channel falls into is also very close to some of the amateur radio bands. Now, you cannot transmit this. The radio just does not have that capability. But the weather receiver can be used to receive some of the amateur bands. So, advantage there. So if we do go into the menu here, just like before, just push the encoder and let go. You can change the color. Has the same color. I think these are all the same colors as the factory original. Your contrast, brightness. Now, here's one of the changes from what a factory radio, set PA. So if we switch that to PA is PA, or PA is the option. Okay, PA as PA means it's the public address. If you flip it to option, now what happens is if you had an amplifier installed in here and you had that hooked up to the connection on the back of the board here, Then, you know, when you exit it out of here, when you push the CBPA button, actually that would mean the power amplifier is on, and you push it again, that turns your amplifier off. So, but like I say, that's selectable as an option. So you can use the PA for either public address, or you can use it to control an internal amplifier. Roger beeps, so yes, this has the Roger beeps, so you know you can pick one of the 6 Roger beeps, or 0 for off. The beep, so you know, key beep, you can turn the, you know, that annoying key beep you have on and off. Talk back, so you can set the level of the talk back, you know, from what, 15, I think, yeah, 15 to 1. Diagnostics, that's basically the same, just duplicates what was originally in there. Volts, no, I don't want. Okay, revision, yeah, it's just a revision of the board. Yeah, old rev. Okay, weather mode. Here's one of the changes. So you can select in weather mode whether you want the receiver to be weather mode, or you want it to be a VHF receiver. So if we select VHF, we'll go to exit, and then we hit the weather button. It's scanning right now, so actually stop it from scanning. But you can see the frequency it's receiving on is 162.15. So, but we can just continue to scroll and scroll. Actually, it'd probably be faster if I did just scan. We'll just let it, instead of me sitting there spinning a knob, I'll let the radio spin it for me. Because honestly, right off the top of my head, I can't remember what the actual limits are, top and bottom of the frequency range on this. It's really broad, though. But now remember, this is FM. The weather radio in this radio is an FM receiver, so this VHF receiver here, that's what you're receiving, is going to be an FM. You can't receive AM, can't receive sideband, because that's a whole separate receiver circuit in this radio that has nothing to do with the CB portion. But if you want to listen to anything within the frequency range that this will cover, as long as it's FM, you can listen to it with this radio. You can see we're up to 167, 168 megahertz. It's still going up. 169. Like I said, honestly, I can't remember. We're just going to have to sit here and see how high it goes. Okay, it's 100 and... scan. I want to stop it. I guess that's what, 100 and... Okay, it was 170. So you can go from the top end is 170 megahertz, and the bottom end is 144 megahertz. So you can listen to the entire 2 meter band on this. You can listen to MERS along with the weather band and any of the other, anything else in that frequency range. But yeah, this has continuous tuning from 144 megahertz to 170 megahertz on the weather receiver. And like I say, that's selectable. You just go into the menu, weather mode, and if we switch it back to weather radio, now if we exit and we hit the weather button, you'll see that it, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's back to, the weather channels. These are just now the weather channels, because actually if I hit scan, it'll just scan, and I don't have it hooked up to a, this antenna actually hooks up to a, I unhook that. The antenna that's hooked up, this is hooked up to, actually has a low pass filter installed on it, so it blocks the weather channel. So if we just put this tiny little stub of an antenna on here, and we'll extend that a little bit,
Friday,
you can see that we are receiving. Let's see, what else do we have to cover in this? Get back out of weather, go back into the menu. One other thing people will like is the step size for your channel selector is selectable. So if we go into step size, you can select 10 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz, or 2500 kilohertz. So let's say we put it on 2500 kilohertz. We come out, we'll exit. Now you'll notice we're on channel 6, 27025. Now watch, it went to 0275. 03, 0325, and then the channel 7. So yeah, 2500 hertz channel spacing. So you don't need a clarifier that covers a huge amount of range. For starters, this picks up the skip channels, but also you can set the selector so it'll go in either 2500, 5000, or 10 kilohertz, normal channel spacing steps. So people that want continuous tuning, you now have it. You've got 2 megahertz worth of range on the channels on this thing, and with the step size there, it makes it infinitely tunable basically within that range. You can go to 2500 hertz, and then, like I say, you've got your clarifier here to fine tune in. So, and then the actual channel range on this is, again, spin, 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 spin. Oh, I hit the limit there. It's, I think 28, yeah, it's 28505 to 26505 is the frequency range. So, but there we go. So there's the Uniden Bearcat 980 SSB. Like I say, this was an old version radio, but that's the Channel King board installed, and just a little bit of an explanation about some of the features that you get with that. You get, not only the extra channels, you get a really broadband FM receiver that covers 2 meters MERS band in addition to the weather channel. The memory channels. You get the, if you install one of those little amplifiers in your radio, you can use the CBPA switch to actually turn your amplifier on and off, so you don't need to drilling holes in your radio to put a toggle switch or anything. So here's some of the nice little additional features. So I can get this one boxed back up now and get her sent back to the customer.